Kayla Mendez had accepted the invitation to Zenith Capital's personal elevation retreat. For one reason: curiosity. As the firm's newly hired ethics officer, she wanted to understand how the men and women who shuffled billions, shuttered factories, and pivoted entire economies justified the wreckage they left behind. The retreat promised answers. For 3 days, a helicopter set down away from ordinary civilization. 31 executives would hike forested switchbacks, meditate beside glacial waterfalls, and undergo holistic biometric rebalancing. The brochure showed silver wristbands pressed against serene skin, green LED halos blinking comfortingly. They don't just monitor stress, the brochure insisted. They empower transformation. Transformation sounded harmless enough when the group lumbered off the helicopter and followed guides up a narrow stone path to a glass-clad lodge. Stripped pines circled the building like the ribs of a gigantic fossil. A thin storm cloud licked the ridgeline. Otherwise, the autumn sky looked surgical and blue. The air smelled of sap and distant ice. Inside, attendants in saffron tunics greeted each guest with a warm towel, jasmine tea, and a wristband the color of mercury. When Kayla's was clasped, it tightened with a faint click, then pulsed once. The band reads galvanic skin response, heart variability and cortisol proxies, said Dr. Rowan, the retreat's wellness director. He was tall, white-haired, with the sympathetic gaze of someone who had practiced it in the mirror. If you're triggered, the band injects a measured microdose of psilocybin and norepinephrine inhibitors to help you process negative emotion. Fully FDA cleared, he added, although no one had asked. Some of the attendees laughed, largely out of bravado. Meera Patel, Zenith's CFO, flicked her band disdainfully. I manage stress with spreadsheets, she told Kayla, not microdoses. Still, she kept the thing on. Everyone did. The first day unfolded like a high-end spa package. Breathwork at dawn, cold plunge therapy in a granite pool, silent lunches of seed-crusted salmon. Each activity ended with a debrief, during which Dr. Rowan asked participants how their wristband felt. The LEDs glimmered soft green across the board. That night, while the wind worried the eaves of the lodge, the group gathered in the fireside hall. CEO Grant Donovan poured Dalmore 25 for the top brass, toasting another year of domination before turning to Kayla. Self-righteous newcomers drink on my tab too, he joked. Kayla sipped water and watched the flames distort in the reflective stone. She wondered which of them felt remorse about the layoffs announced last quarter, the land rights suit in Brazil, the hush-hush payments to regulators. At 2:14 a.m., she found out how remorse tasted. She woke on her back to a chalky smell and felt the wristband's pulse beating faster than her own. A subtle, hot pressure flushed up her forearm. She tried to stand, but crimson light flooded the room. The floorboards lengthened into endless planks, each engraved with the names of laid-off employees: Annie, Jiao, Miguel, Teresa. They looked scorched into the wood. Her stomach flipped. A door appeared where the window had been, illuminated by a twisting orange filament. When she opened it, she stood inside the manufacturing plant Zenith had sold to an investment firm 2 years earlier. Conveyor belts were silent, but skeletal machines hung like carcasses from rusted rafters. A lone security bulb cast a dirty amber glow. Kayla saw a hunched figure at the far end, sweeping shattered glass. Guilty, the figure said in a child's voice she didn't recognize. As Kayla approached, the person lifted their head. The child had her own face at age 8, ponytail frayed, eyes too big for her skull. You wrote the memo, the girl whispered. You said, if we lay them off now, shareholder confidence won't dip. A spike of terror ripped through Kayla's chest. She stumbled backward. The child dissolved into cinders that blew upward and snuffed the bulb. The factory reeled and collapsed, girders groaning like mammoth bones. Then her feet hit hardwood again. She was back in her bedroom, sweat soaking her shirt. The LED on her wristband flickered amber, then green. Her pulse reading scrolled across the tiny screen, but she couldn't parse the numbers. She felt nauseous, raw. She'd never experimented with psychedelics, and she sure as hell had not agreed to do so in her sleep. In the morning, she wasn't the only one looking peeled open. Alan Cho, Zenith's head of public relations, scrabbled eggs at the buffet table with trembling hands. "Night terrors," he muttered when Kayla asked. "Reckon it's the altitude." During a guided climb after breakfast, storms muscled over nearby peaks. The guides decided to cut the ascent short. Somewhere between trail markers 3 and 4, Meera Patel stopped breathing. She went rigid, pupils black saucers. Her wristband flashed crimson so bright it lit the fog. Dr. Rowan rushed to her. "It's a seizure," he said, though he looked rattled. He jabbed an auto-injector into Meera's thigh. 5 minutes later, her body unclenched, leaving her dazed and silent. Back at the lodge, she locked herself in her suite. No one pressed her. In the corridor, Kayla caught Dr. Rowan arguing with a tech aide, a blonde man in Zenith livery. "It's a software error," the aide insisted. "The dosing algorithm spiked." Rowan hissed. "Impossible. We validated the thresholds." Still, Kayla saw sweat beading his temples. She tried to remove her band with a dinner knife that afternoon. Metal met metal, sparks skimmed, but the clasp refused to budge. She settled for sliding gauze beneath it to reduce skin contact. The LED pulsed an irritated yellow. That evening's mandatory circle share felt less like team building and more like a tribunal. The lodge lights flickered under storm surge voltage. Outside, wind shredded the tree line. Donovan, who'd always projected dominion, stared into the fireplace with bloodshot eyes. When his turn came to speak, he started, "I keep seeing a woman in a green coat. She's wet, hair stuck to her cheeks. Every time I ask her who she is, she just points behind me." Lucia Grant, VP of Human Resources, promptly left the circle to vomit. The next round of hallucinations struck at dusk. Kayla was in the lobby, reading emergency evacuation protocols, when a scream sheared the air. She sprinted toward it and found Alan Cho hammering at the glass wall that overlooked a sheer cliff. Outside, the storm had dropped a curtain of sleet so thick only a dim reflection showed. Alan punched his fist into the pane, his skin split. Kayla grabbed him. "Alan, stop! Do you see them?" His face was all pulp and fear. "They're in the ravine. Thousands, maybe. And they're chanting. They won't shut up." The wristband on his arm strobed madly. He clawed at it, but metal teeth held. Suddenly he froze. His eyes rolled back. Then his body bent the wrong direction, spine arching like a fishhook. He collapsed, smashing a coffee table. Dr. Rowan arrived. "Convulsive syncope," he declared, though the term sounded plucked from a textbook no one present believed. Parameds. No, there were none. The helicopter was scheduled for tomorrow night, weather permitting. The satellite phones in the communications room showed zero signal through the storm. By 1 a.m., Kayla had barricaded herself in a supply closet behind the kitchen. She fingered a canister of bear spray and listened. Wind, dripping gutters. A faint, rhythmic clank of metal against tile. Someone pacing with hard shoes. She must have dozed because a dry rasp pulled her into a dream. Or was it? She opened her eyes. In the dark, the wristband's LED glowed a pale sea foam. Someone crouched across from her. Their smell arrived first. Diesel and iron. "KK?" The voice belonged to her brother Leo. But Leo had died 3 years earlier during a warehouse collapse at a Zenith subcontractor site. "You're—" She lifted the spray. His outline flickered. Soot smeared his cheeks. Plaster dust coated his hair. "When you told reporters it was an unforeseeable accident," he said, "did you tell them I texted you the day before? Did you mention I begged you to get the safety inspectors in?" The closet lurched sideways. Shelves toppled. Dozens of plates shattered, each one stamped with Zenith's silver compass logo. Kayla screamed and fired the spray. Capsaicin filled the air. Her lungs tore on its blade. When her eyes opened again, the figure was gone. Her wristband's LED burned a vicious red. She stumbled into the corridor, half blind, aching. Rowan, Mira, Pavel Anatoly, head of security, were there, dragging Donovan toward the infirmary. Blood threaded from a wound on the CEO's scalp. "He attacked Lucia with a fire poker," Pavel grunted. "Lucia's dead." Kayla stopped. "What the hell happened?" Rowan's face was blank, as though his features had been blanched. "We're under the influence of our own devils," he murmured. They laid Donovan on a cot. He writhed, muttering about a green-coated woman. Kayla turned to Pavel. "These wristbands, cut them off, now!" Pavel drew a folding knife. He tried sawing at Donovan's clasp. The blade skittered across the alloy, leaving only faint scratches. Suddenly, the LED on Donovan's band turned indigo. A needle hissed out of a seam and stabbed into Donovan's wrist. Rowan leapt back. "That's not in the protocol." Donovan went still. Then he stood. With inhuman speed, he threw Pavel against a cabinet. Bones cracked. Kayla ducked. Donovan seized a crash cart and hurled it at the door. Metal shrieked. Sparks flew. He bolted down the corridor. Rowan gaped. "The wristbands have autonomous override. They elevated the dose." Mira stepped out from behind a curtain, eyes wide, palms up. "Rowan, why would you design that?" "I didn't," he said. "They were manufactured off-site. Zenith's wearable division handled firmware updates." Mira's breath hitched. "I signed off on those updates." Kayla's mind, jagged with fear, assembled a grim picture. The wristbands measured stress, yes, but they also cataloged psychological profiles, secrets, vulnerabilities, guilt triggers. Someone inside Zenith had weaponized them. For what? To punish? To test a new kind of behavioral deterrent? Donovan's roar echoed from the lobby. Shouts followed, then the shattering of glass. Kayla ran with Mira and Rowan to the mezzanine overlook. Half the lounge windows had been smashed open. Sleet lashed inside. Donovan stood at the edge, chest heaving, blood on his hands. Opposite him, Alan Cho groaned on the carpet. Pavel staggered in, clutching his ribs. The air vibrated. LEDs on every wristband in sight radiated deep violet. Kayla felt a tingling heat shoot through her veins, as though a million ants were gnawing upward. Below, Donovan said, "She's here. She wants me to jump." He stared into the black wind. Kayla saw no one, yet she felt a cold presence loom behind him, heavy and insistent. Rowan tried reason. "Grant, nothing is there. It's your band. Take a breath." Donovan inhaled, chest trembling, and for a moment Kayla thought he'd step back. Then a sick smile crept over his face. "Transformation," he whispered, and flung himself through the broken window. Sleet swallowed him. Somewhere down the cliffs, a dull thud sounded. Mira screamed. Her LED spiked scarlet. She bent forward, nails digging her scalp. Kayla grabbed her shoulders. "Mira, focus on my voice." But Mira stared past Kayla's ear. "They're drowning," she keened. "All those families in Mumbai. We bankrolled the dam. It failed." She ripped free and sprinted toward the staircase that spiraled to the basement pool. "Stop her!" Rowan yelled. Kayla shot after Mira, every joint slick with terror. They thundered downstairs, past flickering sconces. In the pool room, humidity clung like breath. Blue lights rippled underwater. Mira threw herself in, clothes and all. She didn't surface. Kayla dove. Chlorinated cold shocked her brain. Below, Mira thrashed, entangled by hallucinated debris only she could see. Kayla reached her, hauled upward. Mira fought, nails tearing Kayla's arm. Air exploded in Kayla's lungs. She coughed, inhaled water, kept dragging. They broke the surface. Rowan arrived with a life hook. Together they hauled Mira out. She convulsed, vomited pool water, then lay sobbing. Her wristband dimmed to turquoise. Kayla slumped beside her, coughing red. "Remove these bands," she gasped. Rowan nodded, soaked. Electrical tools might cut them. He eyed a maintenance panel flanked by insulated bolt cutters. They hurried to the panel. Kayla secured the cutters around her clasp. Rowan counted to 3 and squeezed. A vivid electric snap cracked, and the cutter jaws recoiled. Sparks chewed the metal. On Kayla's wrist, the alloy deformed but didn't sever. Worse, the LED flashed an alarming black-white strobe. She screamed as a thin probe erupted from the inner rim and jabbed her median vein. A bloom of icy chemicals cascaded through her arm. Her surroundings folded like wet origami. She staggered. Rowan blurred, then multiplied into 5 Rowans, each with her brother's ash-covered face. "KK," they chorused. "No." She clenched her teeth, summoned a memory of standing at Leo's grave, promising to hold executives accountable. She forced her gaze to focus on one Rowan, the real Rowan, she hoped, and swung the bolt cutters at her own wrist. The impact jarred her bones. Again, metal screamed. On the 3rd strike, something gave. The band snapped, flinging shards that skittered across tiles. Silence. Her vision cleared. The hallucinations fractured like cheap glass and fell away. Rowan stared, amazement eclipsing fear. "You did it." Kayla's wrist bled where the needle had lodged. She didn't care. "We have to free the others. The band reacts when threatened, so we threaten harder." They found Pavel propped against a sculpture, breathing in wet wheezes. His band's LED glowed a drowsy green. He looked lucid. "Donovan?" he asked weakly. "Gone," Kayla said. She showed her severed band. Pavel's eyes widened with hope and terror. Together, they raided the maintenance shed for heavier gear. A reciprocating saw, rubber gloves, goggles. Rowan sedated Alan, whose wristband had put him into a catatonic state. The saw severed Alan's device like butter once they slipped a steel chisel beneath the rim to pry the microneedles away from skin. A neon plume of sparks issued, but Alan did not stir. His vitals steadied on a portable monitor. Mira was next. As Kayla cut, Mira whispered, "Tell the board everything." The band popped free. She fainted into Kayla's arms. Wind rattled shattered windows. Snow sneaked across carpets in little dunes. 3 bands down. 19 executives remained unreachable, locked in suites, some unconscious, some possibly dead. No one had seen Dr. Rowan's blonde tech aide since afternoon. Battery backups flickered. The retreat's generator coughed. Then a loudspeaker crackled overhead, broadcasting a voice Kayla recognized. The blonde tech, Lucas Fry. Calm, almost tender, he said, "Congratulations, survivors. Data capture is within optimal range. Proceed to the helipad for extraction and debrief." Kayla's marrow chilled. She jogged to the lobby, looked up at a security camera, and shouted, "You murdered people!" Fry's voice returned. "Behavioral modification requires sacrifice. Zenith's board approved Phase 2 last month. I simply executed." Rowan hissed. "Phase 2!" The loudspeaker. "Adaptive guilt modulation in high-impact decision-makers. Imagine, CEOs who cannot hide from the consequences of their actions. If you want the suffering to stop, you'll comply with the next directive." Kayla felt a hurricane gather in her chest. "You engineered this so they'd kill themselves? Or transform?" Fry replied. "Some like you break their shackles. That too is data." Silence followed. The power died altogether. In darkness, Kayla turned to Rowan. "Can we reach the helipad without bands?" "The cliff path," he said. "Half a mile, winds above 60 knots. "Lucas controls the only evacuation," she said. "If we don't go, he leaves, evidence erased." Pavel coughed blood. "We finish it." Rowan, Kayla, and Pavel armed themselves with an emergency flare gun, the reciprocating saws battery, and 2 headlamps. Kayla stuffed the severed wristbands into her coat pocket as proof. The storm outside was a demon tearing at stone. They trudged across an ice deck, clung to a cable-railed walkway, and rounded the cliff. The helipad's floodlights sliced the snow, still functional, probably powered by a dedicated circuit. A sleek, black chopper squatted, rotors idling. Lucas Fry stood beside it, parka hood down, snow peppering his blonde hair. No wristband on him. Kayla raised the flare gun. "Shut the rotors." He smiled, pitying. "You think exposing Zenith ends anything? Another company will buy the tech tomorrow." Rowan stepped forward. "You can't do this. These people trusted you." Lucas glanced at the mangled bands in Kayla's fist. Look how beautifully they adapted. The ones who died, died in truth. The rest perhaps found redemption. Kayla's rage crystallized into something harder than ice. She fired the flare at Lucas's feet. Red magnesium splattered. He jumped back, coat licking flame. In the same instant, Pavel lunged and swung a metal pry bar at the chopper's tail boom. The bar dented aluminum. Pavel swung again. The rotor pitch changed, whining. Lucas recovered, drew a handgun from his jacket. He aimed at Pavel. Kayla tackled Lucas, hand closing on the weapon. 2 shots cracked, gone into the wind. They wrestled beside the glowing flare. Lucas was strong, but Kayla's months in a boxing gym mattered. She twisted his wrist. The gun fell, skidded under the chopper. Rowan sprinted to a fuel drum, ripped loose a hose, and sprayed aviation gas onto the tail rotor. Sparks from the flare kissed the stream. Whoomp! Flames raced along the boom. The rotor shrieked and decelerated. Lucas shoved Kayla, scrambled toward the cockpit, but smoke belched from the engine housing. He coughed, eyes wild. "You idiot! We'll all die out here," Kayla shouted over the gale. "Better that than become your test subjects." Lucas backed away, hands up. Fire gnawed the chopper. Snow hissed where embers landed. Kayla retrieved the gun, trained it on him. He trembled, truly afraid for the first time. Behind them, emergency sirens echoed, distant but real. Maybe someone had triggered a fail-safe beacon when the lodge's generator failed. Or maybe the board, fearing lawsuit, dispatched rescue. Kayla didn't lower the pistol. "Kneel." Lucas obeyed, wind whipping his hair. The flare's dying light flickered across his face, painting it hellish. Rowan joined her, coughing smoke. "We need to get inside before hypothermia sets." Kayla nodded. She pocketed the gun, pulled out the severed bands, and scattered them into the fire. Metal hissed. Tiny LEDs blinked a final rainbow before dying. Lucas stared, aghast, as if she'd destroyed a Rembrandt. Kayla leaned close so he could hear over the storm. "True transformation," she said, echoing the retreat's brochure, "starts with accountability." She turned her back on him, on the burning helicopter, on the ridge where corporate titans had met their ghosts. She walked into the dark with Rowan and Pavel, toward the wail of approaching searchlights and the possibility, however slim, of a world that might finally demand a reckoning.